on like an actual club.
What do you feel about the momentum of this team right now, Grant? The chance that, if you win at home, you got 2 in a row and maybe you can build some steam.
Yeah, Coach Morris always says Coach Mo, Coach Momentum. He's on our side, so we need to be able to keep him on our side. It's momentum's big in this game, especially in the SEC. No matter who you're playing, wins are big, and if we can string a couple along going into A&M, but we gotta focus on this week and this week only, and try to get more momentum for us.
No, you're pretty tight with Bumper there away from the field. How's he holding up?
He's doing good. He did good today. I know I can't really speak on injuries because Coach Morris, but like personally, he's doing good. He leads really well right now. Everything he does from off the field to on the field he's taking a good leadership role.
Y'all want to show better than you did for the Portland State game this time?
Yeah, definitely. We as a defense want to hold them to 0.
Welcome in. It's our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. And yes, we have more SEC games of the week. There's a lot going on. I'm telling you, in this conference, it means a lot more. And at 1:15, we're going to get in touch with our good buddy of Gators Breakdown. We're going to talk with David Waters. They take on the Tennessee Vols. You know, last week, Demetrius, I made a comment that game might not be as interesting as I thought before Felipe Franks went down, and that turned out to be something. I think I might have to eat crow. This might be a little bit closer. So we're going to catch up with Gator Breakdown, David Waters, and then at 1:30, Josh Lemoyne of LSU Football Truth. You know, LSU's taking on one of our favorite coaches, for myself and Demetrius, Derek Mason, Vanderbilt Commodores. He's going to come on and give us his takes about that upcoming ball game, and then we're going to continue on with just more of SEC football talk. We're going to catch up with Eric Bloom of the Columbia Daily Tribune to talk a little bit of South Carolina, Missouri. They're going to have a big game up in Como. We're going to get all of that information, but we came in with a little audio from junior linebacker, Arkansas linebacker Grant Morgan. Talked about the Dub Club, talked about Bumper Pool. I don't think, as from what I saw from yesterday, that Bumper will be playing. I know we had a question, how was Bumper Pool on yesterday's show? Demetrius made me aware that we didn't cover that, but I don't think we'll see Bumper, but that's not going to be too bad. Expect to see a little bit. Demetrius, they mentioned my guy, Andrew Parker, was a guy that, was mentioned to possibly get some playing time, which I think, and I said it earlier in the year, he was going to be my surprise player. So this may be just a coming out party, but I do want to bring in my co-host real quick before we get this party started and get in the bus and head down to the swamp to talk to David Waters. But Demetrius came out. Arkansas is one of a few teams in the country defensively that's leading the country and scores from their defense. Man, how big is that when you think about that? They gave up 400 yards, playing with such a young football team for most of the year. I mean, how impressive is that, for John Chavis, Coach Morris, and his defensive staff going forward?
Man, I think it's huge because I think they're starting to become the defense is a part of that identity. We were talking about how the offense is starting to go to an air raid attack. Well, I think the overall University of Arkansas brand is starting to become a defensive brand. I think I'll say at least for this year, in my opinion, when you look at the experience on the defensive line and just the plays being made on defense, I just have to give it to that defensive unit that's being the face of the program right now.
Well, it's time for us to gas up and take ourselves on down to Gainesville, Florida, in the swamp. We're going to catch up with our good buddy, David Waters of Gators Breakdown. He's up next. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
Man, what's it like starting, as a true freshman? It's nothing really you expect from any offensive line.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. It's definitely new out there compared to high school, that's for sure. Everyone's faster, everyone's stronger. Everyone I go against is bigger because my weight right now. But overall, it's been pretty fun and exciting.
What is your weight?
Last time I weighed, it was 276. I've been dropping from get up to 279, then I'll go down to like 275, and then it's like I'm in between there. I'm eating a lot. I'm trying to get to 280, 285.
That's obviously a little on the light side for an SEC guard, but you're obviously doing stuff to get in the lineup. What do you think you're doing to have earned these starts?
I'm just trying to play with good technique because I know my weight and my strength isn't up there like the SEC guys. So I'm really trying to just get good pad level on people and really just play with good technique.
think Chad and Dustin said this too. You have a mean streak.
Yeah, play with a mean streak too. I just like to play physical. I like to hit people. I would say I play.
Ty says you don't take crap off like defensive line. Do they try to intimidate a young guy like yourself? Or kind of how does that
On the
happen?
field in the game they did, and Sosa and them they don't really. But on the field, yeah, they do.
Well, what do guys do and how do you respond to them?
Colorado State, they just call me freshman, this and that, freshman, or new guy, kind of stuff. And then when I made a mistake and I jumped on 4th and 1, everyone was like freshman. So
Yeah, what they say when you seal that guy on the touchdown run by Boyd?
didn't say anything.
Yeah. When they say freshman, do you say anything back?
No, I just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
I used to talk in high school, but I'm not a freshman. I'm not about to talk really.
Yeah, I remember reading that you got kind of heavy as a high school junior, over 300, and it wasn't good weight, so you got down. I guess now you're trying to build it back up the right way.
Yeah, I was 335 going into my junior year, and cramped the first half of my game, and then season went by, and I dropped all the way down to, I want to say 285 in my senior season. So got a little bit
You were like the highest vertical out of anybody that was like 280 or above at the Nike.
Yeah, I really don't know how I did that. I just jumped the vertical, and then they told my number, and I was kind of blown away by myself. So
Was it like 28 or something like that?
it was 29, I think. 29.
That'd be pretty good for a basketball player.
Yeah.
Did you play hoops?
I played basketball when I was in middle school, a little bit younger than that, but I still like to play pickup. I played pickup with my friends in high school. While I was in high school, I played all the time, so yeah, I like basketball.
So I played a little bit as a freshman. How has he helped you out, kind of?
I honestly just listen to him. If I need something, I listen to him on the line. He tells me what to do, and I just kind of follow in his footsteps. I follow in his shadow, kind of.
You say
It's like a big brother to me, kind of.
Is he kind of leader of the offense?
Oh yeah, he's the leader of the offensive line.
I remember we saw you start in the scrimmage, or maybe it was the Beanie Bowl or something. We were talking to Ty, or maybe it was early in camp. Ty said he told you, "Hey man, you might play. Be ready to play." I mean, you kind of remember what that was like. What did hit you? I'm going to play this year.
I really came into camp just trying to make the travel squad, but I started playing, and I kind of realized I could play with these guys, and I had no clue I could, and then I realized I was going to end up playing a little bit, like after the first scrimmage where I ran with the ones a little bit. And my coach Fry told me I was going to travel and all this stuff, so I kind of got my mind prepared from there.
Ideally, they like to redshirt offensive linemen, but as long as you stay healthy, you're not going to redshirt, obviously.
Yeah.
Were you thinking, well, I'll probably redshirt?
Yeah, I was thinking redshirt. I was going to try to travel and redshirt. That was my plan. Me and my dad talked about it before I left for coming here, and he just told me waiting room in class is going to be your best friend.
Welcome back. It's our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, coming to you here on KDSJ 479. Real quick, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Lindsay and Associates, Locomotion, Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and KDK's Chicken. You can also catch us, for those that have tuned in, you can catch us on our YouTube page. That's On the Hill Sports Talk LLC. You can catch us here on our Facebook Live. That's On the Hill Sports Talk. You can also catch us on iHeartRadio. And we're just about to break ground on Spotify as well. You can catch OTH on Spotify. If you can't get those other three outlets there, you can reach out to us. But we continue to move on around the SEC. As you know, we here on the Hill, we like to move around and get each and every fan base ready for big upcoming ball games. And there's a real big one that's taking place, I believe, in Knoxville, Vol Country, where the Florida Gators will be taking on the Tennessee Vols. And we thought we'd head to Gainesville and get the scoop from Gators Breakdowns, David Waters. David, welcome back to the Hill, my man. Let's get off into it. It just continues to get bigger and bigger for the Florida Gators. Unfortunately, when I made the statement last week heading into the Kentucky game, didn't realize that you'd have such a freak injury and lose, junior quarterback Felipe Franks. Talk about that loss. Where will they go forward? I know that the backup came in, did quite the yeoman's job. They were able to sneak out with a win. But where does Coach Mullen and the offensive staff go heading into this rivalry versus Tennessee Vols?
Well, Pat, if you want to believe what Dan Mullen was saying, he said after the game Saturday night at Kentucky and in his Monday press conference that the plan is to use both quarterbacks. The plan was to use both quarterbacks, Kyle Trask and Emory Jones, on Saturday night. But Kyle Trask was playing so well that Emory Jones never saw the field. And good for Dan Mullen to kind of changing the plan a little bit and sticking with the hot hand after Felipe Franks goes down with the injury. So But Monday comes around and Mullins asks about it again, and and I'll take him for his word. I think he really does expect to play both quarterbacks on Saturday. Now that could change if Kyle Trask is the starter and he comes out there and he lights it up, and like if he continues from what he did last week against Kentucky, then you don't take him out. You stick with the hot hand and let it go. Or maybe Emory Jones, no matter what happens, comes in on the second drive of the game and also leads you to a touchdown, and the offense is maybe humming just a little bit better. Maybe you stick with him. But I do think we will see both quarterbacks, especially because going back to I do think Tennessee is a better team than what they showed against Georgia State. Right. What really killed him in that game was his own read, the quarterback runs, and that really suits what Emory Jones wants to do as a quarterback. So if Tennessee hasn't fixed those issues yet, then maybe we do see more of Emory Jones and more of that read option, zone read quarterback style of style of offense that Ben Mullen is really known for, and that could be best run with Emory Jones in comparison to Kyle Trask. But the run game hasn't been going so far for Florida this year, so it may be coming out and passing. Passing. I won't necessarily call it an air raid, but passing more that you normally would see from a Florida team to try and open up that defense against the run.
When you look at the line of scrimmage, we all know in the SEC, it's always a line of scrimmage league, especially when you get into big conference games, and even more so when you talk on big rivalries, no more so than Florida, Tennessee. Talk about the line of scrimmage. I know you just mentioned problems, and I believe Florida's had issues on the offensive line in the previous couple of seasons. Talk about that matchup and how important is it that Florida has to establish that running game versus a Jeremy Pruitt defense.
Well, Pat, I mean, it was an offensive line coming in replacing 4 starters from last year, and Florida had some similar issues last year going into early season last year, but by the time you got past midway of the season, the offensive line gelled pretty well, and offensive line as a group was playing really well last year. So fast forward to this year, and there's some experience coming back, even though they had to replace 4 starters, and you thought they really would be able to still rely on the run game, still rely on some run blocking. That necessarily hasn't been the case. They've actually pass blocked much better than they've run blocked, and that's a bit of a surprise. So when you start conference play, and we saw it last week, that Florida couldn't get the run game going against Kentucky, and it almost cost them. Right. They tried some things early on. They tried to test the edges, and still wasn't necessarily working. And I kind of go back a little bit. We didn't necessarily see a whole lot of speed option, or that we saw last year with Franks and Pirine, a lot of creativity in the run game. We saw it late, and Josh Hammond run 70 yards for a Gator touchdown. They steal that game away from Kentucky. But I do think just because of the issues that you see up front right now with this Florida offensive line, Dan Mullen is going to have to get creative. And that may be bringing Emory Jones in and having him run more of the offense. So I do think we'll see a little more creativity in trying to get the run game going this weekend.
Talking with David Waters of Gators Breakdown. It gives us all the Gators 411 here on OTH each and every time we talk Gators. I want to get and flip to the defensive side of the ball. This group has been, pretty steady throughout the first 3 games with Zuniga and the guys up front. Talk about what they have to do, because it seemed like, a semi-outburst offensively from this Tennessee offense that hadn't been putting up a lot of points, heading into the second half. What's concerning for Florida, and what do they have to do versus Tennessee offensively to get out of here, to get out of there with that big W?
First, they got to get healthy and get some guys on the field. C.J. Henderson missed last week, didn't play. I'd put him at very questionable for this game versus Tennessee. So much like last week, you're going to count some true freshmen opposite Marco Wilson there to cover Juwan Jennings and Marquez Callaway for Tennessee. Some big-time, big-bodied receivers. And Marco Wilson got beat up a little bit last week against the big-bodied receiver, Ahmad Wagner from Kentucky. He was in position, but Ahmad Wagner really used his size to his advantage and caught a touchdown pass on Marco Wilson, and Marco Wilson got called for pass interference later on in the game. So, Marco Wilson's coming back from injury there. Like I said, in position. He's there to make the play. He's not necessarily getting beat by speed or anything like that. It's just, he's got now. I know he's bouncing back, and it's probably some getting used to the game again. But he's got to start making plays again that we know that he can make. There. So, but plus, Jabari Zuniga on Tuesday was for Florida was in a boot, so he didn't practice. He missed after the first play of the Kentucky game. He got injured, basically missed that game,
Right.
the rest of that game. So you were without Jabari Zuniga, you were without Amari Burney, you were without C.J. Henderson, and they're getting Amari Burney back this week, so that'll help a little bit. Because Ventrell Miller is also banged up at the linebacker position. Florida's a beat up team right now. That was one thing they really couldn't afford. So the thing is, probably you're not going to have all those guys back versus Tennessee. I don't think either. So you find a way to escape here. I still think they have enough pass rush options, and Tennessee's offensive line is not necessarily good enough to handle what Florida can bring on the defensive front. They got to get past these next couple of weeks, get some guys healthy for that big October stretch run where you have Auburn, LSU, South Carolina, and Georgia.
All right, we got a couple minutes. Give me your offensive player for Florida and give me your defensive player and the final score of the Vols versus Gators in Knoxville on Saturday.
I'm going to give you the receiver position for the Gators there. I do think Florida will pass more with Kyle Trask out there. It's kind of hard to, as deep as Florida is at receiver, it's kind of hard to pick just one. If I had to, I guess I'll go with Freddie Swain because he hurt Tennessee last year with out of the slot and bust a big play there. And for defense, I'm going to go Jonathan Grenard, especially if Jabari Zuniga is out, and him living in the Tennessee backfield to kind of change that game. So I got the Gators a 27-13 victory. They'll be leading most of the game. It'll be close, but you'll feel Florida's in control of the whole game.
Well, as always, my man, great info. I know you guys got a breather next week as Towson State comes to the Swamp. Like I said, that's going to be a breather before you do head into that big October stretch. But as always, David, thanks for taking time out here on OTH, my man.
Thanks, man.
That was David Waters of the Gators Breakdown, and we're going to continue on. We got to go fill up the bus because we got another trip we got to make. We got to get down to Death Valley and Baton Rouge and catch up with Josh Lemoyne of LSU Football Truth. He's up next. We'll talk a little Tigers and Commodores. It's on the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
Yes, it was I got hit against Ole Miss. It was the one where the corner ran off the sideline, and then I took another big hit going this way in the fourth quarter, and I got hit in my hip again, but I should be fine.
You guys developing a good relationship, looks like, with Nick Starkle and you Trey. Just talk about that.
Nick is a good guy. We gelled together as soon as he got here. He's a great quarterback mind. He knows where he wants to put the ball, knows what he wants to do. So, you can't argue with somebody that knows what they're here to do.
It looks like when he sees you guys open or out of your break, like it looks like you're going to be open, he just pulls the string on it.
Oh, I love it. He's a medium risk, high reward type of guy. And, I think that's what we need in this type of offense. Somebody to take chances, throw the ball downfield, and give our playmakers chances.
What do you see out of San Jose State?
They play a lot of off technique, so we'll probably throw a lot of short routes this week. 5-yard quick game for stuff to move the ball down the field, and we'll probably go fast because they don't handle tempo very well.
Starkle's been great back there.
How different is the vibe this week coming off Colorado State and the win?
We're just even keel. We're not going to get too high or too low. We're just going to stay the same and keep working and try to respond to a win because it's all about how you handle success at this point. And hopefully we can have Uncle Mo wearing an Arkansas jersey for the rest of the season.
Rate your head coach's dance moves.
I enjoyed him. I thought he was going to hit the meanest roll of the 21st century. He started doing the wave or whatever, and then he just lost me. But he was going at it for a little bit, though. I was high. I was in the middle right there next to him. But he impressed me, though. I didn't think he had it like that.
How big would it be just to get another win? First time in the course here.
It would definitely be big for us, and having momentum on our side, going in Texas A&M, going into Dallas Jerry's World, playing. I think it would help us play. I think we're growing together as a team, and just getting another win would help us to have that edge about us. Being 3-1 going into Texas A&M.
How's your timing with Nick? It looks to me like he's throwing you some points and he's back shouldering you and all that.
Oh yes, developed a relationship. Like, just he knows where I'm going to be, and I know where he's going to put the ball. So it's good to know that I can just count on him without having to look back. I just know where the ball's going to be, so I just got to adjust to it and get open. Because he's going to put it there. I just got to make the play.
Is the final piece those deep balls? Because it seemed like y'all had maybe two the other day.
Exactly. But those deep balls coming in big, because he was telling me going into that week, he said, if you have the one-on-one, I'm taking the deep ball, so you better get open. And I like that, because I mean, deep ball is my thing, and going deep.
Welcome back. It's our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. And real quick, before we get on to our next football guest here on OTH, I want to give a thank you and a shout out to all our sponsors, Lindsay and Associates, with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting. For all residential, commercial, anything you want to look nice, contact Corey Beck's Custom Painting. And our newest sponsor, KDK's Chicken at 989 Razorback Road in Fayetteville. Go down and catch up with Keith and Kathy and get a whole plate of love. I'm telling you, like they say, it's not your mama's. But we're going to step on and head down to Death Valley and down in the bayou. We're going to catch up and talk a little LSU Vanderbilt with none other than our good friend Josh Lemoyne of LSU Football Truth. Josh, welcome back to the Hill, my man.
Hey, man, I'm glad to be here.
Let's get off into yet another big SEC ball game on the road. You guys, had a little kind of like a sleeper game, I felt like, where LSU didn't play up to standard, but that's to be expected coming off that big win down in Austin versus the Longhorns. Talk about this ball game, and what are some of the keys that you're going to be looking for when this game takes place on Saturday night?
Look, when I look at this game after the first half of the Northwestern game, where LSU came out with low energy, like you said, as expected to be after the Texas game, but man, that defense really came out and just didn't have the energy, didn't have what we're used to seeing from an LSU defense.
Right.
And after the half, Coach O, that wasn't a nice locker room at half. They came out and played more like LSU football that we were expecting. Right. And that's kind of what I want to see in this game. Look, I mean, we're going up to Vanderbilt. You're playing an 11 a.m. kickoff. These kids that play for LSU, they're not used to that. This is rare for these guys to go up there and play such an early kickoff. So it's going to be – that's what I want to see. After that lackluster start against Northwestern State with the energy level, I want to see how Coach O gets these guys to come out, those first couple drives. Are we going to see that, kind of mosey around type of defense, or are we going to see these guys flying around the ball like we know they can?
When you look at this offense, and Joe Burrow, quite obviously, is the leader of that offense, how important is it that, we know about the passing game, but how important is it, Josh, for this football team to establish that running game behind Lloyd, Castleberry, and those guys?
Yeah, it's important. But look, a lot of LSU fans are right now just in shock, right? So before we used to have to run the ball, to set up a pass. So now we're passing to set up the run.
Right.
So a lot of these LSU fans don't know what's going on. They're kind of learning about it. I get so many questions. Can you explain the RPO spread to me? So, but it's going to be important to establish runs as we get into SEC play. Look, just as much as I do that there's going to be 2 or 3 games this year where LSU is going to have to just run the ball and be able to, get those short yardage plays against whoever that is, Auburn, Florida, Alabama. So I want to see LSU be able to establish the run a little more against Vanderbilt. It is our first conference game, so that's definitely important. But look, if you go back to watch Vanderbilt, what happened against Purdue threw it all over the yard. 500 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. So I expect Joe to come out there and kind of keep up what he's been doing.
When you look at LSU offensively versus this, I should say LSU defensively versus this Vanderbilt offense with Vaughn there, which I consider to be one of the elite running backs in the SEC. What do you take away? They have Pinckney also at the tight end, Lipscomb at the wide receiver. What will Coach Aranda and that group be looking to take away from this Vanderbilt offense? And also, too, they do have an experienced quarterback. So how big, of an advantage or how exploitive could they be on defense?
Oh no, this is going to be a good test for LSU. You're stepping up in the quality of opponent. I don't think maybe as quality as Texas, but the one big question that's circling around the LSU program right now is, what's going on with this defense? We can't get a pass rush. This ain't the secondary that we're used to seeing. So this is going to be a test for that secondary and Coach Aranda. Can we bounce back? Can you get back to the drawing board? Coach Aranda's been working on something called the Green Team, that he brings in his package of guys to get some pass rush.
Right.
Well, honestly, that hasn't worked. And he said it publicly. Coach O said it publicly. So this is going to be a good test. Coach O kind of put it out there in his presser. Look, we need to get more pressure on the quarterback. We got to play better on the back end. So that's a shout at Coach Aranda. Hey, you're the highest paid defensive coordinator in America. We need you to go figure it out. So we'll see.
How about special teams? Who has the advantage, in your opinion, Josh, in that area of this Saturday's ball game?
I think, as of right now, I think LSU gets the advantage. Cade York was the number 2 ranked kicker out of high school.
Right.
He's perfect on the year so far. I think he's 7 for 7. He's got a strong leg. And LSU, their punt return game is Derek Stingley, the true freshman all-world, number 1 recruit in America. He's looked real good back there returning punts. They go to another 5-star freshman, Trey Palmer, at the end of the game against Northwestern. First time he's ever touched the ball, and he took it 70 yards for a touchdown on a punt return. So LSU's talented in that aspect. I think LSU has the slight advantage there in the special teams.
Could you give me an update on the health of this LSU football team going into this ball game? Any significant injuries that maybe the listeners of LSU fans that watch our show that might need an update on, or is this a fairly healthy ball club heading into Saturday?
So on the offensive side of the ball, yeah, they're pretty healthy. I think you're going to see everybody play this week. One name that didn't play last week was Jamar Chase, one of the elite wide receivers there on the outside. That was kind of a coach's decision. It might have been nicked up. They didn't say much about that. But on the defensive side of the ball, yeah, there is a few injuries to keep an eye on. Rashard Lawrence and Glenn Logan, 2 starting defensive linemen, won't play this week. I think what Coach O's doing, they both had ankle injuries in that game against Texas. So I think Coach O is kind of managing that as, hey, look, we got Florida in a few weeks. I think he'd rather have them healthy than go out there and hurt yourself against Vanderbilt. And then, Flavion Chase on the defensive end for LSU. Coach O said he's questionable. They're going to make a game-time decision. So, you could have 3 starting defensive linemen out for this game against Vanderbilt. So there'll be another chance for these young guys that didn't look that great against Northwestern. Let's see if they can step their game up against, a better opponent.
Talking with Josh Lemoyne of LSU Football Truth, and we had a couple minutes left. Josh, I want you to give me your offensive player for Saturday and your defensive player, and the final score of this football game versus the LSU Tigers and Vanderbilt Commodores.
Yeah, I think on the offensive side of the ball, it's just hard for me to go against Joe Burrow and just the way he's been playing quarterback. A lot of people have him at the top of the Heisman right now, and it wouldn't surprise him if he throws for another 4 touchdowns.
Right.
That's the way that offense is just. It's a juggernaut right now. Coach Joe Brady that came in, he's got it moving. On the defensive side of the ball, keep an eye out for Damone Clark. He's a linebacker for LSU. He's kind of been there at the middle linebacker position, sharing time with Michael Divinity. I think he's a guy on defense that Coach O is looking to settle in some guys in some positions. They've been doing a lot of rotating.
Right.
But I think that's a guy, Clark, keep an eye on him. I think where he'll settle in real nice there at the middle linebacker spot. And don't be surprised if you see him bring home 14 or 15 tackles this week.
Well, as always, my man, love having you on, and we'll talk in a couple of more weeks. As like I said, you guys got the games coming up, but thanks for taking time out on the hill, Josh.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
That was Josh Lemoyne of LSU Football Truth. And I want to bring in my co-host because, I'm hearing the common thing, Demetrius, as and to the listeners. Demetrius and I were riding in, and we always have great conversations as we were talking about Arkansas' remaining schedule. The common thing that when you look throughout the schedule, Demetrius, is injuries. Injuries at key spots coming up. Following the game on Saturday, Arkansas will take on a very, very depleted running back core there at A&M as they lost one of their top running backs, and then you have a break, you move on. Kentucky loses their top quarterback, then you move on. Auburn seems to be fairly healthy, but you go to Alabama, they've had a lot of defensive injuries up front and at the linebacker core, and to me, defensively just aren't the Alabama defense of the past. You move on. Mississippi State's a team that you feel good about. LSU, as Josh has just mentioned, they're dealing with a couple of injuries. Now, that's a ways off, but you see where I'm going, the common denominator about injuries being real prevalent in a very important SEC. I mean, Arkansas's had that issue over the years with people going down, and they're going through it right now. And I think 5 defensive ends at Arkansas have, had the injury bug hit. So talk about that a little bit, going forward, and how important will that be as far as Arkansas being able to, weave their way through this schedule?
I think it's huge because I think every SEC team, including Alabama, is one player away from, losing that contending spot. Even when you look at the LSU's, the Auburns, the Georgias, you take Tua Tagovailoa away from Alabama, and you're looking at a totally different team. So I think when you look at it, the SEC depends on being healthy, because even when you look at the playoffs, that's been our Achilles heel when it even comes to the college football playoffs. Are we going to be healthy, whether it's Alabama, whether it's Georgia? Are we going to be healthy come the end of SEC play? And again, that's what every team is fighting within playing in this SEC conference.
Well, I mean, we're still going to move on. We're going to gas up, and then we're heading to Como. We're going to catch up with the Columbia Daily Tribune's Eric Blum, talking a little Gamecocks and Tigers. They've got a big one coming up this Saturday. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
Felt pretty good.
Capable of reaching speeds of 23 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I didn't hit it, but my highs was maybe like 21 something that game.
Just what was it like getting the action and then returning that fumble?
It was unreal, Sosa making the ball go back inside, Hayden coming in, making a big hit, and he scooping and scoring, just seeing green grass and just running into the end zone. It felt pretty good.
A little earlier, it looked like if you got him turned around, you might have got an interception.
Yeah. I got to get my head on the swivel next time. But could have had 2 big plays, but I mean, that one, it really felt pretty good.
What's that mean for you getting out there, finally getting some action in terms of, developing and getting more comfortable?
Just throwing me in the water. I mean, putting me in deep water. I mean, just getting me better and ready for better competition. Later play in the season.
What's it been like waiting your turn?
It's been pretty good, but I mean, I've been down and sometimes down, but I'm just waiting on my turn, just getting ready at every moment, every week, just waiting.
You remember the last time you scored a touchdown?
My last high school game, 2018, 17 maybe. My week 10 game, that was my last time playing real football.
Well, what was the how'd you score?
Maybe a jet sweep, maybe. Yeah, that was like the last time I played real football.
So you're playing receiver?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know what your rep count was the other night? Kind of how you graded out?
I maybe played a good amount of series.
Welcome in. It's our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. And real quick, I want to once again give a shout out to our sponsors, Lindsay & Associates, Locomotion, Tory Banks Custom Painting, and KDK's Chicken. And we had to head up. There's 2 Columbias in the SEC, but we made our way up to Como, Columbia, Missouri, where we catch up with the Columbia Daily Tribune's Eric Blum. EB, welcome back to the Hill, my man.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on again. Always a fun time.
Let's get off into it. Another big game. This is in the interdivision game in there in the East versus South Carolina as they make their way up to you guys' Columbia part, that being Missouri. Talk about these game keys and what will you be looking for come kickoff. I believe this is an early morning game. I think it's an evening game. Talk about your game keys going in on Saturday.
Well, yeah, it is a 3 p.m. Central kickoff at Faroe Field, but yeah, this is what I've called, and I only think it remains more true now than ever. This is Missouri's most important game of the year for when it's scheduled. Georgia can't be a big game. Florida can't be a big game without Missouri winning this game.
Right.
And on the other end, South Carolina, they're going to be 1-3 if they lose this game. Yes, it's just not pretty for them. lot of reports coming out of Columbia, South Carolina, that the Gamecocks are dangerous and the Gamecocks are desperate because if they lose this game with Clemson, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas A&M still on the schedule, this team is going to be fighting for bowl eligibility with not that many games kind of left up against it. So this is an incredibly important game for both teams. And this has been kind of one of the Tigers' biggest SEC rivalries so far, with their time here. Obviously, Missouri has I think, won both matchups before they joined the SEC, both in bowl games. But since Missouri has joined the SEC, South Carolina holds a 5-2 advantage, including the last 3 years. So, this is a game that Barry Odom's never won, and a game that, if Missouri loses this game, kind of derails their plans for a lofty bowl season because, they can't pick up another SEC win until 3 weeks from now if they don't beat South Carolina.
When you look
go
ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, it's not only because this is the most important game of the year for them, but they only have one more game at home. It's a conference game between now and November 16th if they lose this game. That's Ole Miss coming up in 3 weeks. So this is such an imperative game for them.
When you look at this team offensively, I think going in, and I was one in the media that thought, this Missouri team would, be further along offensively. Are you surprised with so much experience that was coming back to this offense that they're kind of, been sputtering along, 3 weeks into the season?
Well, you have to look at the competition they play. At the end of the day, they still scored 31 against Wyoming. They scored 38 against West Virginia, and they scored 50 against Southeast Missouri State. Missouri's offense truly hasn't been tested in a way that we can really gauge where they're at yet, in my opinion. The people you would expect to have good games, they spread the ball pretty well. Kelly Bryant has really lived up to the billing. I mean, outside of 2 pretty bad throws that are easily fixable, he's looked pretty darn good so far this season. He's lived up to every bit of the billing. A lot of people blame for that Wyoming loss that happened, but I don't think you can blame him. So this is kind of the real first test we're going to get offensively. That is this going to happen for them in a way that they can run teams out, that they can put their foot on the gas, or is there way more to fix here than what appears to be there already? I mean, they have several wide receivers who can make a difference. They have a 3 kind of running back system, but definitely a heavy top 2 with Larry Roundtree and Tyler Beatty, who are there. But yeah, I mean, so far so good from the offense, but it's defensively that they showed a pretty big weakness against Wyoming that haven't, but fixed it kind of, but they haven't been played an offense that's been clicking since Wyoming.
Defensively, when you look at them health-wise, how are they? I know former Fayetteville High alum Akil Byers, he's been playing through some injuries, but how as a whole defensively is this Missouri Tigers, going into Saturday's ball game?
Well, I guess I'd be remiss going back and say that another Fayetteville High alum, Barrett Bannister's looked pretty good on offense. And I believe he's in Fayetteville, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's looked good, too, as well. But defensively, it was kind of a big story going into the year that how improved the defensive backs have been. And they've allowed only 1 receiving touchdown so far this year. And that was a garbage time touchdown against West Virginia where their second teamers were playing.
Right.
So the first team defensive backs have not allowed a receiving touchdown yet this season. I do expect that to change Saturday. I can't see Brian Edwards not getting in the end zone for South Carolina. But this is one of the biggest chances for them to prove themselves so far. I mean, this is a proving ground game all around for Missouri. I know I've said that phrase a few times, and that's completely unintentional, but that truly is what's going to happen here because Missouri, defensively, it's only kind of been a matter of time until one cog falls off during the year.
Right.
And when you have your cog fall off kind of early in the season, Missouri hasn't been put in that position yet where, now they have to rebound that early in the year. It's kind of the worst blessing in disguise, but we'll see if Missouri has truly learned, especially defensively, because that's what let them down against Wyoming. cog is back on permanently. We're able to see that, and I think just a lot of the rush defense is what truly let them down, and partially the cornerbacks, picking up the assignments on the misdirection and things like that is what let them down. So if South Carolina tries that, have they adjusted with a team who's just as big, as not bigger than they are?
Talking with Eric Bloom of CDT, the Columbia Daily Tribune, covers all Mizzou football for us here on OTH. And real quick, got about a minute and a half, Eric. I want you to give me your offensive player and your defensive player and the final score of this football game in Como on Saturday evening.
All right, offensively, I'm going to go Jonathan Johnson, the slot receiver from Missouri. About 800 yards away from breaking the all-time record. He's had the most catches on the team, but he's about 100 yards short of most yards. I think he's going to have a nice game for them. Definitely a game that he wants to win. Defensively, I might go the guy who's playing kind of in a Akil Byers starting spot, kind of right there. Might be Kobe Whiteside for them. Definitely doesn't make a lot of noise on the defensive line, but he is absolutely a difference maker for them. And he's the guy they've kind of keyed in on. Other teams have keyed in on because of how explosive Missouri's defensive outsides have been, defensive ends have been, and then Jordan Elliott on the inside. So he's kind of been the man that they've keyed in on to try and run at. So Kobe Whiteside has a solid game. Missouri will do well. I do think this will be within a touchdown either way. I predicted it early on before the season started that South Carolina by 4. I guess I'll flip that. I just can't see a way that Missouri doesn't find some sort of footing in this game. I'll go Missouri by a field goal. I'll go Missouri 30, South Carolina 27.
Hey, good job, my man. Love having you on. I know you guys take an off week before you get back into non-conference, and then, the gauntlet starts. But as always, Eric, thanks for taking time out here on OTH, my man.
Hey, thank you, Pat. I appreciate you.
That was Eric Blum of the Columbia Daily Tribune giving us the Mizzou 411. And I want to bring in real quick my co-host as we're about to wrap this thing up for today. And we'll be back tomorrow with much, much more. But, you heard all the scuttlebutt, Demetrius. You hear about every aspect of the big SEC games. You hear about Florida from